Okay, so for this one, you can factor the top. If you were to factor it, you would draw an x. And then on the top, you would put -4. And on the bottom, you would put 0. It'd be plus or minus 2. So this would be x minus 2, x plus 2. For the bottom, it's a little harder because for this one is you could either use the quadratic formula, you could use the x method first. You would try to do this, if you do the x, remember that it'd be a times c, so it'd be 28. The reason I don't just factor out a 2 is because I would get a fraction, and so this would be 11 divided by 2, and that wouldn't quite work here. So you can see here that if I were to factor this, you'd think about what numbers multiplied equals 28 that add up to -11. And the reason I have 28 instead of 14 is because here I have a 2 in the front, so I do 2 times 14 to get 28. So this portion, does anyone know what two numbers I would have on the sides? Sonny. Right, -7, -4. At this point, it doesn't stop here. You could use the box method, or you could use factor by grouping. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the box, and then I guess I can do the grouping. So here, what you would do is you would put 2x squared on the top left. You would put 14 on the bottom right. You would put -7. It could be in either the top right or the bottom left. So at this time, what you want to do is you really want to find the two things that multiply to equal 14 and the two things that multiply to equal 2x squared. I'd say it's pretty easy to do the bottom left because -7, well, you're only going to have one answer, so it's going to be -7 over here. That means this one's going to be -2 because -7 times -2 equals 14, right? So that means for this one's definitely going to just have to be x because x times -7 is equal to -7x, and that means this one is 2x. So 2x times -2 equals -4x. Looks like that checks out. So that means the factors for this are 2x minus 7 and x minus 2. The second way you could do this, so this is factor by x box and then factor by, so x method and then box, that's why it's called x box, because we're combining the methods. The other way you could do this is if after this point you could go, okay, so I'm going to group 2 together, so you can do 2x squared, and I'm gonna group it with the -4 right here. And then the other one I'm going to group with, actually it doesn't matter here. You could do -4x minus 7x plus 14. So what I'm doing right now is essentially what I just did in the box method. I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, so 2x, this would be x minus 2, and then I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, -7, that's x minus 2. Remember that inside the parentheses you want exactly the same thing. If they're both multiplying the same thing, then they are going to combine into one parentheses, so it's going to be 2x minus 7, and then x minus 2. The reason is you are essentially doing the same thing again. You're taking the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is x minus 2. You're taking an x minus 2 from both of these, and then you're saying, well, if I take out an x minus 2 from both of them, both the 2x and the -7 both have an x minus 2. So what you can see is that whichever one makes more sense to you, factoring by grouping or factoring by the box method, both of them are essentially factoring by grouping. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to show you how to factor this, like the 2x squared minus 11x plus 14, and then it changes to 2x minus 7 times x minus 2. So we've learned this a couple times before. So after you factor it, now you can see that there is a similarity on the top and bottom. So we can cancel out one of the things. So one of the things we can cancel out is the x minus 2. And we get x plus 2 divided by 2x minus 7. Okay, so our final equation here, our simplified equation is x plus 2 divided by 2x minus 7. That would be our final equation. Abby, the worksheet's right there. The worksheet's right there. Okay, so again, factoring by the box method and factoring by grouping, those are just the same things. One of them is just the method that might make more sense to you, so just choose one of them to get to the factors. Okay, does anyone remember, how do I get my horizontal asymptotes here? How do I get my horizontal asymptotes? So I'm gonna just rewrite my equation down here. So my horizontal asymptote, it has to do with my function, which is f of x is equal to the simplified equation. Does anyone know what my h of a would be? What condition does it fulfill? Masami? The bottom variable is the same as the top?
No, greater.
Oh, it's greater? Okay. What's the bottom variable? But what's the exponent?
2.
You sure that's the exponent?
Oh, no, it's 1.
Right, and then what's the exponent of the one on top?
1.
Okay. Right, it's the same. So in this case, what you're comparing is not the size of the variable. The reason is because the bigger the numbers get, those changes are very minimal, but exponents are more important here. So here, we're looking at the exponents, so there are really no exponents here, but that just means that there's a 1 in the corner, right, because there is x to the first power and x to the first power. So we meet the condition where the exponents have the same exponents, so that means what do we do? Does anyone remember? What do we do? Nathan? We divide the coefficients. So what's the coefficient, the one on top? 1, because there's a 1 in front of the x, so it's 1 divided by, and then 2. So that means our h of a would be 1/2 is equal to y. Remember, it's horizontal asymptote. Okay, vertical asymptote. Does anyone remember, how are we supposed to solve for a vertical asymptote? How are we supposed to solve for a vertical asymptote? Abby?
Make your denominator equals to 0 and you solve.
Okay, so what's our denominator?
2x minus 7.
Okay, so I write 2x minus 7 is equal to 0, and then?
Add 7 to both sides. And then divide by 2.
Okay, so our vertical asymptote is that x is equal to 7/2, or you could write 3.5. Might be easier to graph 3.5. Probably use a darker pen. Okay, are there any holes here? Are there any holes here? Does anyone remember, do we have any holes, and how do we know if there's a hole? How do we know there's a hole here? Darren?
No, there's a hole if you can cancel something out and reduce it.
Okay, so if we look at original equation, did we cancel anything out? Oops, it's too far. Did we cancel anything out? So we did. What did we cancel out? Alright, we canceled out x minus 2. So that means at x minus 2, or there's a hole. Wow, this pen has exploded. X minus 2 equals 0. There is a hole there, so we solve, we get plus 2 plus 2, we get x equals 2. And so what we're going to do is we're going to plug in this number into our original equation, or sorry, not original, our simplified equation. So our simplified equation is f of x is equal to x plus 2 divided by 2x minus 7. So we plug in 2, we get 2 plus 2 over 2 minus 7. Oh, wait, why did I plug in a 4? I don't know. And then we get 4 over 4 minus 7, and we get 4 divided by 3 negative thirds. Wow, this pen died. So we plug it in, we get 2 plus 2 divided by 2 times 2 minus 7. And we get 4 divided by 4 minus 7, and we get negative 4 thirds. Okay. So what that means is that at the point 2, comma, negative 4 thirds, y value of negative 4 thirds, there is a hole there. There is a hole at that point. Okay, so the next portion asks us, is there any x-intercepts? So for this portion, what you want to do is, okay, so we're going to plug it into our next one, which is, so f of x is equal to x plus 2 over, what is it? 2x minus 7. Okay, so we're going to look at our original equation, or sorry, our simplified equation again. And so to find our x-intercepts, does anyone remember what are we supposed to do to find our x-intercepts? Does anyone remember? To find our x-intercepts, what do we do? Nathan? Right, so to find, if you don't remember, to find x-intercepts, set y equal to 0, or you could say f of x equal to 0. So at this point, we're going to get 0 is equal to x plus 2 divided by 2x minus 7. We could just multiply both sides by 2x minus 7. Then we get 0 is equal to x plus 2. And we get minus 2 minus 2. We get negative 2 equals x. That is our y-intercept. Or x. Yeah. So at negative 2 comma 0, there is an x-intercept. So what you should remember is that to find the intercepts, you just plug in the opposite thing. So to find your x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. To find your y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. Oh wait, sorry, you don't have to do up or down. That's
Oh.
remnants of my other.
What about x-axis?
Yeah, sorry. It should be the same thing. I just should have been replaced. Sorry.
Okay.
It should be horizontal and vertical. Sorry. That's my bad. Okay, so to find your y-intercepts, you're going to plug in 0 for x, and you're going to solve. So f of x is equal to 0 plus 2, 2 times 0 minus 7, and you get 2 comma negative 7. So that means at 0 comma 2 negative 7, you have a y-intercept. I'm sorry, you don't have to do domain and range, not for this one. You can if you want to, that would be the best, but in this one, that's okay. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to draw your horizontal, vertical asymptote, and you want to draw your holes, and then you want to kind of see what points you should plug in. So in our graph here, you're going to see that we have a, let's go back to our previous, actually we can plot our intercepts first. So on this graph, so first I'm going to plot my x and y intercepts, and then now I can plot my h of a, which is at so since my h of a, my v of a is x is equal to 7/2, I can plug in 4 and then see what I get in my equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in 4 into my simplified equation. You can see that I kind of sketched this already. So what I did is I sketched my graph, and so what I'm going to do is plug in some points in here. So I'm just going to plug in 1 point and then sketch the rest. F of 4 equals, so if you look at our simplified equation, I get, what, 6 divided by 8 minus 7, and I get 6 over 1, and I get 6. So what that means is that at the point 4, comma 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going to look probably something like this. So I can kind of sketch it. I know my graph is going to look something like that. I have a hole at, what is it, 2 comma negative 4/3. So 1, 2, negative 4/3. Sorry, that would be probably like right. So the hole, I guess the graph should be more like this, and the hole would be right here. So I can take out the other part of this. So yeah, I would recommend drawing those parts first, or else you'll be like me and you have to erase it. But this is a sketch, so you can see that our hole would be like right there. Your graph would look something like this, and that would be it. Okay. So what you want to do is you just kind of want to sketch your graph. You can just plug in a point to the right and to the left of your vertical asymptote just to check where those points would be, and then you could just sketch the rest. Okay? You have a question?
I think I
So here you can see that I plotted the two intercepts, and then I plotted my whole. I also plotted just one point to the right because I didn't get anything from the things that I solved for. And you can see that my sketch here, this is what my graph is going to look like. Okay?
How'd you know which blocks to go or like where to plot it?
So I plotted my x-intercepts and my y-intercepts. So I just plotted them normally, and then I found that it would be in the bottom left. Since it's in the bottom left, then that's how I just drew my graph. Okay. Did you try plotting your x and y intercepts?
Yeah, but where's -2/7? Where's your -2/7?
What do you mean -2/7?
For
The y-intercept?
yeah,
It'd just be right here, right?
wait, no, you're right. Yeah,
It's just where it crosses the y-intercept.
yeah.
So you go down 2/7, right? 0, comma, -2/7. Yeah. So the x-intercepts, so if you want to clear, this is -2, comma, 0. This portion is 0, comma, -2/7. And this is our whole at 2, comma, -4/3. And this is our 4, comma, 6.